Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, having somewhere to hang your hat is truly a basic human necessity, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with, once more, as always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a little 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook. We're on the Twitter. We're on the Instagram. We're on the TikTok. And we're on the Letterboxd for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So do us a favor. Please pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a good one. We had some tech issues, so our Hot Docs coverage is a little behind, but we are still talking all things documentary. And we are looking at the film Someone Lives Here. Now, I know the festival only has a couple more days to go, but it is available online for a few days after the end of the in-person festival, so I do recommend you go check it out. It's from director Zack Russell, and it's a Toronto story, but it's a very real story. It's takes us into the height of the pandemic, where in Toronto there was a huge spike in homelessness, and one man, sick of seeing his city unable to care for its unhoused people, Khaleel Seivwright quit his full-time job as a carpenter and dedicated himself to building insulated shelters called tiny shelters, innovatively using body temperature for heating. It was his efforts were getting international media attention. Everyone loved it, and then everything just got shut down. And the city of Toronto shut him out, and things were not going well, and things got even worse. And if you live in Toronto, or even Canada, really, you kind of know what happened from there on. But we had the unique pleasure of talking with director Zack Russell, who debuted this film at the festival, and it is a poignant watch, especially if you're in Toronto. Like I said, it is available streaming from the 5th through to the 9th. So please check it out when you can. It is one of those films that deserves to be seen. But please, first enjoy our talk with director Zack Russell, because between you and me, it is a darn good one. Well, I mean, obviously, first off, Zack, I mean, just thank you so much for the time today, and congrats on the movie. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
I watched it. That's great.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess walk me through, like, getting involved in this story and wanting to tell it.
Yeah, it was a fun beginning. It was like pandemic times. I was kind of in an insomnia moment. I was awake very early one morning, scrolling on my Apple News, and I saw an article by the CBC about this carpenter who was building, and it was just this very positive, kind of light article. It was the thing, I think, that eventually made Khaleel go viral, about a carpenter named Khaleel building little shelters for people who were stuck outside. And I've never made a documentary before, but I had a vision, like, it sounds great. I had a vision of a tiny shelter with like a little, like, perched on a hill with snow and a voice coming from inside. And so I don't know, that doesn't happen to me that often. I'm not prone to visions. So I emailed him immediately, impulsively, didn't really know what I was doing, and just said, would you ever consider a film? He took a very long time to get back to me, like a week. And then he said, no, I'm not interested at all. And I said, okay, I understand. He's like, I want to focus on building. I'm not really doing this to like have a film made. But he said, I do want to make a how-to video so that other people can see how to build these. Would you do that? So I said, yeah, sure. Came by his little garage that he had in, I think it was Cabbagetown, with DP Chet Tilkani. And we just spent a couple days making a how-to video. And he, I guess, didn't hate us. And we didn't get too in the way. He was able to build shelters quickly while also making a how-to video, which was which was cool. And then we just sort of stuck around. And yeah, I didn't really accept that I was even making a documentary about him for a while. I just kind of thought we were hanging out with a camera and we would see what happened. Yeah.
Well, I mean, first off, I love that something positive actually came out of doom scrolling, which is something we were all doing back in the early COVID days for sure. But I mean, I'm curious, like the more you filmed him and the more time you spent with him, like was there kind of a linchpin moment for you where, okay, he's accepting of us, he's sort of getting involved with the process, or did it take a while to really sort of win him over to the, I guess, the filmmaking aspect of it?
Yeah. I think that I've only won him over to the filmmaking aspect of it after the film was complete. um, and that is, I think that makes sense, because I think that if you're a person doing something in the world and you've never had a documentary made about you, how do you really know what it's going to be, and how can you really be confident in it? And there's like a number of ways that documentary filmmakers go about forging that relationship. But for me, it was important that I didn't ask him to sign anything until the very end, until he'd seen a cut.
Yeah.
Which is like, we're talking a year in, more actually. So I really wanted it to be a choice that he was always making and that he always felt like he had the freedom to make. But for me, I mean, after I filmed him for a day, I was like in love with the footage, and I was obsessed with watching him. You know, there's some people you see them on camera and you want to watch them. And from an aesthetic point of view, that was like a big early motivator. And then the deeper in we got, I mean, the first day that I was with him, he got a warehouse. The second day I was with him, the city of Toronto sent him an email saying, "We're excited about what you're doing." So there was so much positive momentum in the early days. And it felt like we were there for kind of like this exciting beginning. And I was quite naive in thinking that would be the extent of the story. But yeah, and then, you know, as it progressed, I ended up doing a lot with him, for him. We filmed videos for him to help him get his message across. So it became like a very collaborative effort. And I became very passionate about what he was doing and who he was trying to help, because it really became clear to me quickly that it was a life or death situation. And he was saving lives.
For sure, yeah.
And that felt like an important thing to help him do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things, I mean, especially from a cinematic standpoint. I mean, I think that moment when you were filming him calling into council and sort of reacting in real time to the false narrative that was getting sort of pushed out there, like when I saw that, it was like, okay, boom, this is when the movie starts.
Yeah. And that was so early in the process. It all happened at such a rapid speed, and I felt it too. I felt a mixture. I mean, when you're making a film like this, you're rooting for the person and you're also watching it like it's a film. And so it's a strange mix of being excited as a filmmaker and angry as a citizen, you know? I remember feeling both of those things. But I also just am so happy that we were there, because, you know, it's like a meeting happens in city council, a few hundred people tune in and listen, and then it's over. And we say that there's a public record, but the public record is like enormous, and people don't go back and they don't listen. And
exactly.
Not every journalist spends 9 hours listening to a city council
for that one quote that they want. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm so surprised at how much this is still in the public conversation, even. Like, I kind of thought that it would be forgotten and that the world would have moved on, but the timing is so strange. Like, the ombudsman just released a report saying that the city's actions were not good.
Yeah,
to put it
duh.
And it was being debated in council a few weeks ago, and now we have a mayoral election, and the city's treatment of people living outside and of people that are unhoused has only gotten worse since we made the film. So it's upsettingly timely, and I'm happy that we're showing it now, the film.
How was it for you, especially sort of in the thick of it all, to dive into the minutia of the political side and sort of the issues coming out on the other end of the issue. Because I mean, obviously, as a filmmaker on one end, you want to highlight Khaleel and the good work that he's doing, but I can imagine there is this other pull to be like, okay, I literally have to spend time on the politics.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't go in with any political agenda, nor did I go in really knowing where I stood on this. I was really open to believing the city and believing the politicians and believing the kind of public narrative that they put out really skillfully, right? Like they have a great publicity machine and they have the ear of journalists. And so it took me a while to see the connection between their actions and their narrative and the gap, I guess, between what's actually happening on the street. But I also enjoy now engaging in city politics in a way that I never have before, because I really see the connect, like I see that a decision in council can like on a Thursday can like affect someone's life on a Friday.
Yeah.
And that's real. Like that council meeting you referred to in the film, like they were asking, a huge number of people were asking that they stop evicting people from the parks, and they decided not to do that. And then the next day someone has their tent taken and is put in serious jeopardy and probably maybe even dies a week later. So like there's just this amazing immediacy to the politics of this. It's so visceral and it like really affects people immediately. And as a filmmaker, that's like both exciting and terrifying.
Well,
Yeah.
but I mean, that leads into my next question, because I mean, I can obviously imagine that on one end, I mean, you know, as a documentarian, you just have to be there with your camera and turn it on at the right time and hope, you know, the right things happen so you can capture it. But how do you sort of grapple with, I guess, the weight of, I mean, even like dealing with these issues in real time? It's like, oh, I'm talking to someone who's living in their tent. And then I talk to them 2 days later. Oh, wait, they don't have a tent anymore and they're really in trouble. Like, how do you sort of, I guess the right word is just to come to, I guess, create a bit of a barrier, because I mean, obviously you're going to take things personally. You're going to try to get involved to a certain degree, but at the same time, you have to maintain a certain degree of distance as a documentarian at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, this is a horrible blunt answer, but I think you have to, sure, there's some distance, but also if you're documenting someone and then they die, you don't have anyone to document anymore.
Right.
So I feel like it's truly at that level of like this film had to take a back seat a lot of the time because I needed to help someone not die. And I often felt guilty for a very long time, like I was being a bad filmmaker.
But you were being a good human being. So
yeah, or just trying to even be a human. I was being a human being.
Right.
You know, with some kind of good intention, I hope. And I felt guilty, but I think that then the payoff is like, okay, so you build the relationship and they're still alive, and then they know something and they can share that thing with you, and they feel like they can trust you enough to let you have that testimony. And so then you kind of reap this amazing reward as the filmmaker. Oh, sorry, wait, am I still with you?
Yeah, you're still here. I got you.
I'm getting these weird I'm getting a call from Mexico. I don't know who it is. I'm not going to answer. And I hate how everything's tied into, it's like your phone is tied into your computer.
Our lives are tied into our computers, buddy. I mean, come on.
Now my face is big and yours. Okay, there we go. I was horrified for a minute. Just my face, huge. Yeah, so I think being a human first is always good, and you know, there's like, I think I'm a neutral filmmaker and I'm a partisan human. Like I want people to survive and not be crushed by our systems, and I believe that people that are unhoused have as many rights as people that have money. But at the same time, when I'm making a film, I want to present it as objectively and neutrally as I can, and I think I've done that. And I think that I've let the facts speak for themselves. So like, it was by no means a hit job.
No, for sure. Yeah.
You know, and some people that watch the film feel like it's too balanced, and some people feel like it's too critical against the city, and some people feel like it's not critical enough. And I think that that's a good sign, because it's living in a kind of gray zone of what I experienced and what happened.
Well, and I mean, and that's true. And it's one of those things where, I mean, at least from my perspective, balance is so, important because I mean, at least gives a certain degree of objectivity to the issue as a whole. It allows it to come across a lot more clearly. And I mean, I'm kind of curious because obviously when you're in the thick of this, you're not going to know if this is a short or if I can do this or if I can send it to the festivals. But when you get to a feature length level, obviously it takes it to a completely different audience. Like, was there a moment in the entire process when you knew it's like, wait a minute, we can turn this into a feature and then maybe really get a chance to get some eyeballs on it and talking about the issue more?
Right. Yeah. I mean, people, my entire career, as short and lame as it has been, is people telling me that the thing I'm making is a bad idea and shouldn't exist in the way I conceive it. So like the first time I made a short film, the advice I got from producers was, you should probably wait and get funding. This isn't really a short right now. You need lots of money and you should wait a few years. It was, oh, good Lord. Sorry.
I have post-production, it's fine, don't worry.
With this, it was people telling me, well, it's already in the news. So, he was all over the news. So what's the point? And yeah, maybe it's a short. And then, but I just knew I wanted to make a feature, and I knew that time was on our side in a way because the winter is long.
Yeah.
And the outcome is like, we were telling the story about the winter and what happens and can people make it through the winter and what's this person doing to help people make it through the winter. And the life of the tiny shelter was long. He builds them in November and some of those people had them all the way up until September. So I felt like the span of it was long. I also didn't know what I was doing and just shot 400 hours of footage and hoped that there was a feature there at the end.
When in doubt, shoot. I get it.
Shoot more. And I do have lovely producers who did kind of start to say like, okay, Zack, but it's September now and you're still going out and you're still getting things. And knowing when to stop is a challenge, I think, for any documentary filmmaker.
From your perspective, like when you're in the middle of all this, because I mean, like we've said, this is such a current issue. This is something that is still going on. How do you find the line between being a filmmaker and being a newsman? Because I mean, some people obviously can't tell the difference, but I mean, after watching your film, I definitely felt you were like right down the middle.
Right down the middle. Okay, wait. Tell me, like, kind of reporting and kind of filming.
Well, no, but filming, but not trying to slant it.
I see. Yeah. I don't it's a good question. Like how to not slant it.
Yeah, because I didn't feel a slant. And I mean, and sometimes when we watch news, obviously we know this in the modern media landscape, news can have a slant.
Yeah. I think it sometimes helps to be naive. I think it sometimes helps to not know anything. And I think if you can wear your naivete on your sleeve as a filmmaker, then you can achieve that in a way. Like, to be objective is sometimes to have no beliefs and to be blind and to just be like, what I see is what I see. And I really, I started making the film and I spoke to friends, and some friends I spoke to were like, yeah, that people shouldn't be living in parks. And some friends I spoke to were like, they have nowhere else to go. And some friends I spoke to were like, parks are the best place. And so there was no consensus, and I didn't know. And I think it's like all of these issues are kind of just coming into our public consciousness, and we're still as a culture trying to figure out what we all think about them. It's by no means a cut and dry matter. And that helped me because I didn't feel like I knew where I stood, and I didn't feel like I don't think anyone knows where we stand, because the problem is complex and it is evolving and it is historical and it is also current and future. Like it is a big thing that involves government, wealth, addiction, like there, like it's just, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question at all, but
No, it does though, because I mean, I think that naivete sort of allows the complexity to come through. It's not one, and I mean, it goes back to even just the spirit of, like you said, you shot 400 hours. Sometimes you just have to shut up and shoot and just let everything fall where there may. And I mean, I think that's where the magic of this picture lies, because you let everything fall where it laid. And I mean, and that's just, that's kind of an important thing. It's not only in filmmaking, but I mean in journalism and just getting info out there into the world anyway. And I think
yeah.
you've done that.
And you can do that if you move slow. I
Yeah.
think easier to go slow with that. Like, spending a year filming and then spending a year editing lets you do that. It lets you be naive, shoot too much, still be naive, because with 400 hours, how can you feel like you have a perspective, and then whittle it down? And I think the slowness helps. And I also think, like, yeah, I'm just so guided by like fiction filmmakers too. Like I'm thinking about like Kelly Reinhardt, and I, like, someone recently said something about her where she doesn't love her characters and she doesn't hate her characters. She just wants to see them in a truthful light. And I think that's really hard to do. And I think it really resonates for me. Um, and I love Khalil as a person, but as a character, I just want to show something that's true about him,
Yeah.
whatever that is. And I don't know, being guided by that, it sounds, maybe I'm like, whatever, now it's getting to film school or like philosophy class, but too woo-woo. But that is kind of what's guiding me, I hope. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I'm glad it did, because I mean, obviously now we're on the brink of the world premiere. Like, is that even something that's even cognate, like happening in your head, or in terms of the realities of showing this to the world, or is it not real yet for you?
It's real. I mean, I just found out that this first screening is sold out.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic.
so that made it real. Like, oh, people are going to come, which is overwhelming. It's like a very large cinema at
Oh,
Hot
it's like a
Cross.
700 seater. It's gonna be a big crowd. So,
Yeah, so there will be 700 people watching it in a couple weeks. I don't know. I've never made a film. I've never made a documentary before. I've never made a feature before. I don't know what's going on, really. Like, I guess you're right. People are gonna watch it, and okay. I
well,
prefer not to think about it. But then on the other hand, I actually think maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not really mine anymore, and it'll be a relief to let it be other people's film, and like, it can be the city's film, it can be our country's film, it can be Khalil's film, it can be the city of Toronto's film, whether they want to accept it or not. Like, it can have its own life. And yeah, but it's whatever. The kid's going to college, and I'm trying to let it be okay and give it, nice furniture for its dorm. But I don't know. Hopefully it does well in college. I don't know how it's gonna do.
well, I mean, I think at the end of your screening, man, you're gonna have a hell of a spirited Q&A. You're gonna get a lot of people talking sort of at the end of it, which at the end of the day, when it comes to, any kind of art, filmmaking, documentary filmmaking, is kind of the point. You're
Yes.
evoking conversation, and you're putting that more out into the universe. And I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing, man. But I mean, honestly, congrats on the work. I mean, good luck at the premiere, and thank you so much for the time today, man.
What a lovely combo. And also, I love your podcast. So
Oh, thank you, man.
thank you.
Appreciate that. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.